Welcome to Football Coach's Edge. I'm the coach. This is episode 4, Visualization in Football for Player Confidence and Absence of Fear. In episode 3, I introduced the types of visualization and basic and advanced visualization techniques for use in football. In this episode, I will show you how visualization can remove all doubt, fear, and anxiety from your players. I will also introduce how visualization can build supreme confidence in playing in a state of mind known as the zone. In order for an athlete to play at a high level or a championship level, the most important obstacle to overcome is not found in the skill of the opponent, the weather, or bad officiating, but rather within the athletes themselves. This obstacle is lack of confidence. Lack of confidence comes from a state of doubt. One coach that clearly understands this and the power behind it is current Las Vegas Raiders coach Pete Carroll. In Coach Carroll's book, he notes how human beings tend to enter a state of doubt when faced with the unknown or uncertainty. Physically, when we doubt our ability, we tend to instinctively over-tighten our muscles. Mentally, we fear failure and can become emotional and distracted. Coach Carroll learned that the greatest detractor from high performance is fear. Fear that you are not prepared, fear that you are in over your head, fear that you are not worthy, and ultimately fear of failure. He recognized that the key for a coach is to instill in players what he called a state of perpetual confidence. He states that an athlete's immersion in and focus on performance allows for a lost sense of time in much the same way that children do when they are having fun playing, unaware of the world around them. When we have confidence and allow ourselves to become fascinated, the world seems to move in slow motion. It is an altered state of consciousness that comes from an extreme level of focus, or what Coach Carroll calls supreme confidence. This altered state of consciousness is what we call the zone. Almost all athletes get in the zone at one point or another, but the problem is that it comes and goes on its own. It may or may not return during the game, and if it does return, it can go away just as quickly without warning. So what does the zone feel like? In basketball, the hoop may seem to you to be the size of a kiddie pool, and you can't help but make every shot. In baseball, when you're at bat, the baseball looks like a beach ball that you can't help but hit. In hockey, the net seems to be soccer-sized. In football, everyone around you seems to be moving in slow motion except you. You find yourself anticipating and reacting before your opponent even knows what is happening. The game slows down so much that you feel you can do anything on the field and no opponent can stop you. That, my friends, is the zone. Now, what if I was to tell you that visualization can get your players in the zone and remain there for the rest of the game? Sounds wild? Perhaps, but hear me out on this. Let's go back to Coach Carroll and more of his philosophy. He said that when players know that they have mastered the rigors of training, whether on the football field or in the weight room or classroom, then their confidence leads to an unusual focus, free from distractions, doubt, or fear. This attentiveness, also known as a quieted mind, clears the way for athletes to perform to their highest potential. When a performer has supreme confidence in himself and can trust all the people around him and the schemes they are running, he is finally free to totally focus and become immersed in this performance. This is where great performers and great teams acquire a most cherished characteristic. They know they are going to win. When you know you're going to win, you don't doubt or worry and can actually perform with a quieted mind in the absence of fear. The best teams utilize that confidence to share a feeling where they not only expect to win, They know they are going to win. That knowing is what allows a team to play in the absence of fear. Finally, Coach Carroll concludes that this state of mind, when you are truly competing for the sake of performance alone, is when you are performing in the absence of fear. And I promise you that an organization that can get to that mindset will succeed, will win, not just for a game or a season, from that moment onward. Those are some powerful ideas from Coach Carroll. After reading his book, combined with other authors that I mentioned in episode 1, I have come to believe as he does. However, Coach Carroll's way of getting his players in the zone was not that effective. He knows the destination, but he does not know how to get there. He mainly relies on creating competitive practices with an atmosphere of fun in order to keep his players loose and build up their confidence. Although I think that is a great strategy, I believe that adding the element of sports visualization would ultimately get the coach's players in the state of mind that he wants them to be in and remain there at will. Before I make the case for how sports visualization can build confidence and get your players playing in the zone, let's talk more about player fear and anxiety. As I stated earlier, lack of confidence comes from a state of doubt that human beings tend to enter when faced with the unknown or uncertainty. This doubt creates fear in the athlete, fear that you are not prepared, fear that you are in over your head, fear that you are not worthy, and ultimately fear of failure. All players at one time or another have felt this before a game. So what do coaches do today to alleviate pre-game anxiety, doubt, and fear? They use rituals to build up their players' confidence and instill doubt and fear in the opponent. These rituals are seen at the beginning of every high school football game. Players jog around the field as if on parade while their opponents look on. They have those clean uniforms with shiny helmets. They look and feel refreshed. They line up in nice straight lines and do their stretching while counting out loud for all to hear. They showcase their skills, speed, and power during positional warm-ups. The quarterback throws the nice spiral to the deep receiver, who showcases his speed and ball catching skills. The players are strutting around, clapping their hands, thumping their pads, and high-fiving. They hope all this can intimidate their opponent, and at times does. However, I submit to you that this is all bullshit if you see it for what it really is. It is nothing more than a way to mask their own doubts and fear, period. It is simply a mind game and is only effective if the opposing coach allows it to be. Let me make my point with two true stories. Ulysses S. Grant, who would eventually become the leader of the Union Army during the American Civil War and the future President of the United States, was given command of the 21st Illinois Regiment early in the war. He received his first orders when he was told to find the enemy, a Confederate regiment led by Colonel Thomas Harris, and attack. Although he was a soldier 15 years earlier in the war with Mexico, Grant had never led men into battle. Grant described his fear as he approached the spot where Harris's regiment was located and the lessons he learned. Quote, "As we approached the top of the hill from which it was expected we could see Harris's men ready to do battle, my heart kept getting higher and higher until I felt to me as if it was in my throat. I would have given anything then to have been back home, but I kept right on, and even though I was trembling with fear. When we reached the top of the hill, the valley below was in full view, and I suddenly stopped. Below, we could see where Harris's troops had been waiting, but they were gone. My heart resumed its place. It occurred to me at once that Harris had been as much afraid of me as I had been of him. This was a feeling that I had never experienced before, but it was one I never forgot afterwards. From that moment to the end of the war, I never experienced fear upon facing the enemy. I never forgot that he had as much reason to fear my forces as I had his. The lesson was valuable." End quote. Here's another story, one that many of you can relate to on a personal level. Jordan Platz is a marathon runner and author. Here he describes how he felt just before one of his first races and what he learned. Quote, "I used to struggle with my confidence when I first started running. I remember one race where I was feeling incredibly nervous. It was one of my first ones, and I was worried that people would be judging the way I ran or that I wouldn't be as fast as everyone else. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. But then something strange happened. As I looked around at everyone else, I realized that they all looked just as nervous as I did. At that moment, I suddenly realized that if we were all feeling the same way, then maybe it wasn't such a big deal after all. Perhaps we were all just overthinking things. I took a deep breath, shook off my nerves, and decided to go for it. And you know what? I ended up with a new personal best. From that day on, I learned to trust in my abilities and not let my nerves get the best of me." End quote. These examples can serve as a valuable lesson for your athletes in dealing with doubt, fear, and anxiety. Remember, the opponent is feeling the same doubt, fear, and anxiety that you are. He is just as much afraid of what you are going to do to him as you are of what he is going to do to you. So relax and let it loose. Those pre-game rituals are all just a show. Peel back that curtain, and the wizard is nothing more than a frightened, insecure person. Once the opponent knows that you are not intimidated by his facade, he will crumble before you. It is at this point that you will control your own fate. So, how does visualization fit into all of this? Visualization allows players to focus on the process rather than solely on the outcome. This will help them shift the focus away from that fear of failure and onto the actions that are within their control. Tell them the following. Instead of obsessing over winning a game, focus on the steps you need to take to achieve that victory. Working with yourself at a pace that you can manage can help reduce that fear of failure, because patience with ourselves provides us with a sense of progress and achievement. Focus on what you can control. As an athlete, it's easy to get caught up in things that are out of your control, like the weather, the opponent's skill level, or the referee's calls. But dwelling on these factors can only lead to frustration and anxiety. Instead, focus on what you can control, like your own preparation, mindset, and effort. Focus on what you must do and what your role is throughout the competition. Don't worry too much about your opponent or the spectators or the coaches on the sidelines. Doing so will quickly make you nervous and lose your focus. And focusing on the opponent will only lead to comparison, and that's not what you want. Just do your job, as Bill Belichick would say. Tell your players to embrace the moment. They made it this far. The hours, weeks, and months of training brought them to this moment. Continue to remind them that they are there and why they love what they do. Fear no one, but respect everyone. Embrace the moment and enjoy the competition. This concludes episode 4, Visualization in Football for Player Confidence and Absence of Fear. Please join me for episode 5, Visualization in the Preseason, where I will show you how best to introduce visualization to your players in the preseason, setting up a vision and philosophy, setting up team captains, correcting negative behaviors, setting up a player mentor protege system, and the fundamental skills to focus on. Until then, this is the coach reminding you that the edge lies outside the box.